sit quietly together for 3 minutes. But while we're sitting here quietly, just notice what you're thinking. So the act of noticing and observing your thoughts will help you understand how thoughts work and how they can trigger our calmness or our anxiety. So I'm going to put the timer on now. You can also turn your attention to your breath if you'd like. Just notice if there's anything that you find irritating or comforting. I know. Just slowly open your eyes. That was 3 minutes. How did that feel? Did anyone want to share? It was only 3 minutes. Did it feel like a long time, short time? Anyone want to share?
Very long, short. Sorry.
Short? Felt short. So anyone feel it felt short?
Felt very long.
I felt very long.
I think it depends on your training.
Yes.
I'm used to. I've been practicing yoga and martial arts my whole life, so I'm kind of used to it. And
yes.
It's easy to focus on breathing and
great
meditation techniques. But I think if you never do it, it might feel like it's too long.
Yes. Did it. So that's great because. So what? What's your name?
Claudia.
Claudia. Mm-hmm. So Claudia said that she's been practicing yoga and martial arts for many years, and she's used to practicing meditation and breathing exercises. So for her, it didn't feel that long, and so it's integrated already into your lifestyle. Yeah, this practice. Yes, you're right. This is. Say that again.
Yeah. I wanted to keep it longer. For me, it was kind of short.
Yes, and that's wonderful. And did anyone feel that it was a very long time?
Yeah.
Yes. And how did that feel? What were you feeling?
I was all the time waiting for the next camera thingy. That was very distracting.
Uh-huh.
But I think that's probably because I'm not used to meditating. I've tried. I found it's not my cup of tea. I deal with my anxiety by moving around.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody knows that. So yeah, it felt like a very long time.
Okay.
And I didn't have any intrusive thoughts as into what's coming next or what's next on my to-do list. But what usually happens, and maybe somebody can relate to that, is that I start focusing intensely on some external stimuli, right? Like the camera.
You see,
That's what I chose to focus on. It's like,
it's
how long is this going to keep going?
and this is it's really good what you're saying, because that's the experience that the brain is it's fighting with the sense of being. And so I understand you completely, because any of us who start to meditate will find the same thing. You hear some noise, you hear something, and the point is, if you practice meditation, it's kind of there is a learning curve that the brain has to learn.
Sam Harris tried to teach me how to meditate. I'm sure
Somewhat.
Sam Harris.
Oh, yeah.
So if he wasn't able to do it.
Okay. But the resistance is normal. Just to understand, the resistance is normal, and focusing on sounds. When you start to practice regularly, this 3 minutes, unless maybe you have a particular resistance to it, we all have something. But with practice, you actually, the noises, you start to not notice them, and you realize, sometimes it can happen if you're really,
Me,
yeah?
I started to pay attention in the camera too,
Mm-hmm.
but then I forgot completely to pay
Yeah.
attention to that and was thinking about anything else.
But this is really, it's super important to notice what we focus on, because it's not the camera's fault. You can meditate in, I meditate on the bus, I meditate, anywhere. So it's not the outside noises. Our brain is completely capable of tuning out the outside noises. I mean, unless you're maybe at an AC/DC concert, it's a little bit hard, but probably, arguably, you could. But in general, we are capable, because has anyone also focused really intensely on a task and someone's talking to you and you don't even hear what they're saying because you're writing something or you're reading? Same thing. So we can actually tune out those outside noises, but it is very normal when we start, or if we're not accustomed to practicing going inside and being quiet, to focus on things. And it's annoying. I mean, sometimes I practiced meditation since I was 23, so that, again, almost, how many years? 30 years. Not every day. I go in times where I practice every day, twice a day for 20 minutes. So 20 minutes twice a day, it's a lot of meditation. But you don't know the impact that it has. I prefer to meditate than take a pill. I prefer to meditate than drink or do other things that I can do or we can do to calm ourselves down. So for me, meditation and being, when I learned that, it was just like, are you serious? It didn't take my anxiety away, but what it did, sorry, that was my Minnesota accent, away. It didn't take my anxiety away, but what it did do is show me that I had the capacity to calm myself down. And so I knew it was like, I used to call it my virtual bottle of pills, or that I would have, my imaginary bottle of pills. It wasn't a pill, it was my meditation, that I could access that quiet place inside when I needed to. And it didn't mean that I didn't have another panic attack, because I struggled with that for many years. But what I will say is, after years of practicing this list and these areas of my life, my anxiety did go away. It's like 99% gone. Every now and again, I'll have little moments, or when I fly, we were talking, flying for me is still sometimes difficult, but in my life, you don't know, when I first moved here, even to Buenos Aires 7 years ago, I couldn't take the subway comfortably without panicking. I was always worried about where I was going to go, where I was going to be, and constantly worrying, even though I'd practiced a lifetime of these things. But eventually, it went away. And here, being in Buenos Aires has been really instrumental in helping my anxiety, believe it or not, because I was able to practice living in a big city and not be constantly worried about things. So I've been very happy. Happy here, and in that sense, it's kind of like it started. My anxiety really changed 7 years ago before I moved here, and this was just like the way for me to practice and put into practice even more this toolkit. So the second thing I want to talk about is moving. So
Can I add
Yes.
something to what you said about flying? I remember yesterday I had a flight, and just when I was flying, I thought many years ago, I used to have a whole trip thinking this thing is gonna be fun, but 1 minute after the other.
yes,
And if you're feeling like that, more than 2 hours, it's a lot.
yes,
And yesterday, I said to myself, how different I feel because I got my earphones and was listening to music, even sleeping. I didn't notice I was not thinking I'm flying, and that's a clue.
yeah,
That's why it has to do with you said about thoughts.
yes,
And I used to go all the time thinking this is not important.
yeah. And did that,
And
it
I avoid that. And the only thing I could do was
was what?
pray.
Pray.
I was always praying.
Yeah. And what's interesting about that, so she's talking about the fear of flying, which I can absolutely resonate because I've been on my first flight. I knit a pair of, I like to knit because it helps me with anxiety, but I knit a pair of socks between Chicago and Brussels because I was in a constant state of panic and I had to do something to, yeah, I had two socks, I mean, that's exactly. Well, they were, yeah, woolly socks. But what's important to realize is what you said, that you noticed your thoughts, and when we observe our thoughts, so you had, this is really about being, you're observing your thoughts, and you say, look at that. Worrying about the plane falling isn't going to change whether the plane falls or not. It's just going to make you uncomfortable, right? So
It's not, I'm saying that because of you or because of this moment. It's true. I
Yeah.
was thinking about that yesterday. I said, I'm not thinking this is going to fall.
and that's really, I mean, that's great, because that's a step to understand that the anxiety is really diminishing than if it was something you struggled with.
So up to do about where you put your focus. I'm a former flight attendant, so I experienced.
I always have so much admiration for,
situations with passengers.
Yes.
And we were trained to, in order to have people count down, to, have them focus. Many times I have to sit next to passengers and go through the process of takeoff and landing with them because of their panic.